How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another long-awaited edition of Views from the East End. Here with Mr. Flex. How's it going, Flex?
Yes, all good, man. Back again, like we never
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been years. I think it's almost been about 6 years since our last sort of recording, and just any piece of content, really, to be honest. So it's great to be back. I know we've spoken about this over the last few months about trying to bring back some episodes for our audience here on Views from the East End, and today is actually quite an interesting one. We watched a documentary done by Louis Theroux, and it was for the men of the Manosphere, as they call it. And that was a very controversial documentary. It's created a lot of noise over the last couple of weeks since its release on Netflix. And listen, we'll get into it, but before we do that, let's watch the trailer for those who've not seen it, so they can get a bit of an idea as to what it's about.
I did a documentary today with this guy, Louis Theroux. Do you guys know who this is?
Louis Theroux.
Oh, shit. Is he gonna do a hit piece on me?
Careful of this fella, mate. Evil smile.
He's so woke, his wife makes him pee sitting down.
There was a funny moment where he's like, what do you think Snakeo's message is?
Do I sound like that?
A little bit.
Well, that was listen. I think that was a very brief teaser as to what to expect. It's an hour and a half documentary, a lot of content in there, a lot of interesting points and strong points and perspectives from the individuals who were featured in that documentary. What did you make of it, by the way?
It was very interesting. What made me actually chuckle for a moment there was when Myron Gaines says that, he's so woke, his wife makes him pee sitting down. Like, some of the comments these guys come out with is just wild, outlandish. And I don't know if they're doing it on purpose to somewhat drive, clicks and, monetize, this whole ideology that they've got going. So, I mean, the documentary, I thought Louis did quite well to kind of be in that environment, which is a bit of a strange one for someone like him to be in, and to hear the stuff that he heard. I think there was a section in the documentary when they were at Myron Gaines' studio, and Louis goes to talk to one of his assistants, and then he messages her to basically tell her, hey, keep quiet, don't talk to this guy, and then she had to lock it off. So, yeah, man, so many interesting characters in that documentary. What was your thought?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I did watch a similar documentary on the BBC iPlayer. I think this one, compared to the BBC one, was very much extreme, to be honest. I think it was a lot more unfiltered compared to the BBC one. And I think you're right. I think that the whole Manosphere concept has definitely grown over the last year or so. I think there's obviously a huge following or online community gathering young men to be the best versions of themselves, right? And I think as a concept, I don't think it's a bad concept, Lex. But when you look at some of the viewpoints that, the likes of, as you mentioned, Byron, Justin, Harrison as well, some of the views they came out with, right, they were quite strong. And I also found some of it to be quite contradictory as well, particularly from Harrison. I know he mentioned the fact that he doesn't support OnlyFans. He made a lot of homophobic slurs throughout the documentary as well. But then when Louis asked him, "Are you homophobic?" he says no. And then he spoke about the fact that, again, he finds, in his words, and quote unquote, he finds OnlyFans disgusting, yet he promotes it on his platform. So, it was a bit contradictory, and it kind of made me raise a question and think, the men or the young men who are following the Manosphere, are they really, are they being taken advantage upon, or is this a legit following where people can actually bet themselves, Flex? And I don't know, a lot of questions raised from it. I mean, why do you think it exists? Because listen, men in our society now, a lot of people, I think in our society, there's a lot of mixed messages now, right? There's a lot of messages, particularly on online communities, telling you how you should behave, what you need to have to be happy in your life, what you need to be a man. And a lot of people can get lost in that messaging as well, to be honest. So when you look at the Manosphere, like, why do you think that it exists? Of course, there's a community to get people to kind of be the best version of themselves, but what's the main concept of it, do you think?
I mean, like, I look at it in like three different parts, right? I look at it as it's a space where it's filling a gap because I think in today's society anyway, there's a lack of male role models. Back when we were all growing up, there was someone you could look up to, whether it's your father, your uncle, someone close by where you live, even a teacher, right? So you can have a role model there in your life. Also, there's loads of unclear, like the modern identity of a man is unclear, right? In today's society, it's very unclear, and I might be speaking out of turn saying this, but it's become more ambiguous as time has gone on, and women have had a small part to play in all of that, because in one breath they would say men need to be tough, they need to be hard, they need to be alpha, and then in another breath then they would say that they need to be soft and they need to be this and they need to be that. So that kind of brings into that, like, then what am I, like where am I, what am I, kind of thing. And then I also look at, let's say, traditional roles, right, for a man. In today's society, traditional roles, like I was watching on Channel 4, I think, is it like a program called First Dates or something of the sorts, right? And there was one couple that, well, they're not a couple, but they're on their first date, and the guy wanted to pay, but the woman was like, nah, like, I want to pay. And then they're having this debate about who should be paying and et cetera, et cetera. And that leads to that whole idea of traditional roles and values, where a man, pays for the date, whether it's the first date or every date after that, the man pays for it, because that's his responsibility, bringing you out or taking you out or whatever the case is. So that's another thing. And then you've got the idea of real world male communities, those type of things don't really exist much, and that's where the Manospheres come in. It's a community, it's a place where people gather together and share the same ideologies, and then it's all about building that online identity. Do you see what I mean? Because more time people are living their real life online as opposed to living real life in real life, and they're taking advantage of that. You see what I mean? So
it's a good thing you mentioned about sort of the growing up in a role model aspect, because I think, as you mentioned, as when we were growing up, right, we didn't have all these platforms that we've got in 2026. We had, as you said, we had maybe people in our personal lives, whether that was our dads or our uncles, maybe big brothers, or maybe teachers, for instance, who would teach us what it's like or what you should be doing to be a man, really, your responsibilities, how you should treat people. And also even your mum would get involved and teach you about, your morals and how you should treat different people, not just your wife, but also anyone you encounter, with respect, etc., and so on and so forth. But I feel like with social media nowadays, right, it's almost like, as you mentioned, there's these communities where, again, even if I use the example of news, for instance, traditional news, we grew up watching news on a TV, whether it's the BBC, ITV, Sky. Whereas nowadays, people now go onto social media for their news, right? And whether the news is legit, whether it's fake news, as they've called it over the years, people believe it. They buy into this news, and people could then draw people in with these, these ideologies or these conspiracy theories, as we even saw from Sneak Bo in the documentary as well. People believe this stuff, right? And social media is playing a big part. And the mental health aspect of it, I think, is really important, because I think as men, traditionally, we do hold things in. I feel like probably women are more open about their feelings. I think men, as much as there's been encouragement in terms of men should come out and be more open about their feelings, there's still a barrier there, Flex. There's still a barrier to be 100% open. And it's weird of this, because I think that as much as people would probably argue and say that our world now is so connected because we've got all these social media platforms, but people are still so lonely, Flex. Not just men, but everyone is still very, very lonely. And as you mentioned, people are living out their real lives online, maybe having this sort of persona, keeping up a persona when it's not the real thing. And again, this Manosphere is really a case of building the community. Again, I'm not against the concept of it. I think if you bring men together and you bring positive messages, you help people, for example, get fit, make healthy choices, I think these are all good, concepts, Flex. But when you start to have very strong views, right, and maybe some conspiracy theories get involved in it, I think that's where the mixed messaging becomes quite clear and it becomes quite confusing. As you mentioned, people don't know what they're meant to be now. Women say, well, they want, as you mentioned, a good point. Women say they want someone who should be alpha male, strong. But at the same time, as a woman, as a wife, as a girlfriend, do you want your partner to be responsible, caring, all the stuff that a man should be. It's not just about the outlook in terms of, you know, how you're built or maybe you're, you know, your alpha male, like, quote unquote. It's about how you treat your wife, your partner, how you respect them, taking up your responsibilities. Having said that, responsibilities in 2026 have changed, Flex. You know,
Big time.
of how men, as you mentioned, the first date scenario, men, yes, I guess it's in our pride to take care of a woman, but also women think, well, okay, we're no, we're looking after ourselves now as well. We should also maybe have it more equal. But again, that sort of back and forth is still a bit of a challenge for a lot of men, to be honest.
It is. And I hear it. Look, equality or equity, you know, is something that's a big thing, you know, and understand that, yes, women go to work and, you know, they want to feel like if they pay for something, it also shows that they're bringing some form of value to, you know, the scene, you know. But in most scenarios, I think that, you know, if a gentleman wants to be a gentleman, I feel like the woman should be a gentlewoman and accept the gentleman to be the gentleman. Do you see what I mean? But touching on, you know, you spoke a little bit about the mental health aspect of things, and I've got some interesting stats to share with our audience, right? So suicide is the leading cause of death for men under 50 in the UK, right? So if you're under 50, right, as a man, you know, you're more likely to die from suicide than anything else, which is crazy, right? That is crazy. Then you've also got to look at 1 in 8 men experience a common mental health issue. 1 in 8 men. So if you imagine you're on the train, or if you're at the bus stop, or if you're out shopping and you've gone past 8 different men, one of them is going to be experiencing some sort of mental health issue, right? And then you've also got the known fact that men are significantly less likely to seek for help compared to women, right? So you're also fighting that aspect, which is probably comes down to shame, right? Because society now shames men for speaking about certain things, right? And so it's harder to come out with these things, right? So it's crazy. You know, we all know that men talk less about their emotions. We know that men don't really go and seek for professional help in these things, you know. And then there's also the cultural aspect of things, right? You know, so in certain cultures, it's just frowned upon, right? Like, be a man. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you'll be told. You know, if you're a little bit, when you're like, I remember when my dad passed away, and we were on the actual day, right? And his brother, like, obviously sees us visibly upset, and he says, like, yeah, don't cry, like man up, kind of thing. You're like, dude, it's my dad.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying this like, okay, you're his brother and stuff, but that's my dad. Like, I'm allowed to feel like this. It doesn't make me less of a man.
But the thing is, Flex, though, it's a good point. The thing you have to remember is, particularly in the documentary, right, there's very strong views as to how men should be, right? I mean, I think Justin mentioned he's got an open marriage, not marriage, but relationship where he sleeps with multiple women. And again, there's men who believe that women have a place in society, right? And that is to be beneath the man. The man should be earning a lot more. And women, I think his partner, Justin's partner, she's a stay-at-home mum. Right, she looks after the kids, and she even said it on the camera. I believe that this is my place. I need to be at home looking after the children, cooking, whilst he's out making money. But at the same time, Flex, when you think about it, right, it's not just these individuals or men we see in a documentary who have these wild views, because culturally, like you mentioned, there are cultures and backgrounds who believe that the man and the woman should have certain places in the household, society, and I don't think they'll ever move away from those traditional views, to be honest. Like, a lot of, again, African men believe that, listen, they're the ones that should be going out to the breadwinners, they should be earning, the women should be the ones who do the looking after the children, that the house chores and the cooking, right? That's just, as much as we've moved on as a society, the cultural views from certain backgrounds are not going to change, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. But I also do think it can change on the other side as well, because ideologies die as people die. Right. So as the generations roll on, right, you would then start to see a greater shift in those types of ideologies shifting and changing. So it is possible, maybe just not in our lifetime. Do you see what I mean? But
it's I know you're right. I think with I don't know, going back to the Manosphere thing, I think a lot of these, what I noticed from a lot of these men, Harrison, Justin in particular, right, they showcase a lifestyle. They use the fact that men are held down in society now. They want to build up men, and they want you to be in control of your own destiny and your own life, right? So not kind of stuck in this matrix cycle of 9-to-5 work, struggling to pay bills. That in the UK at the moment is going through a lot of challenges, and people are suffering as a result, right? But a lot of it, because Louis in the documentary, he actually signed up to one of Harrison's platforms, and Harrison, trading, and he encourages people, listen, sign up, you can make more money. He was showing people how much money he was making on his phone. But when Louis put in, I believe it was £500, he actually revealed later on in the documentary that he lost, I think, £400, and he was down to...
The reality with that anyway, like when it comes to like anything, is that if you're just blindly following someone because they told you to do something and you're not obviously doing your groundwork and research, why would you expect it to work? You know,
but
it's
Flex,
like,
that's my point though. My point is, sorry to put there, but my point is that when we look at these people, are they actually trying to do this with good intention? And that is to make men more, I guess, more upstanding, take control of their destiny, as they said, or are we, in fact, I'm not saying me or us as followers, so I don't follow them, but people who are actually in the Manosphere and actually following these people, listening to these people like Andrew Tate as well, for instance, are they just part of the matrix as well? Because the thing that we have to realize in our society now, Flex, is that men and women, we all can't be rich. We all can't be rich. We all can't have that $1 million lifestyle where we travel around the world, you know, on yachts, in these massive mansions. We all can't have that, Flex, because if we all had that, there'd be no money left in the world. So we have to accept that, right? We have to accept that. And the problem is with these people showcasing these lifestyles on social media and trying to draw you in and say, listen, for you to be a man, you've got to have this, you've got to have a nice car, a big house, you've got to have a dozen women, and you've got to be able to travel the world. I don't think that's the right perspective to have on life, because we all can't have that, Flex.
We all can't have that.
I think society now, we all, social media plays a big part. We all have this thing where, or people have this thing where, in our society now, we all have to post everything we do online and show a certain persona, right? And to show people that
absolutely
in our lives, or people tell you, for you to be happy in your life, whether you're a man or woman, you need to have this, 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 and this. And I don't think that's true. People get drawn in from that and they get lost in it. But the people who
this is what I'd say, though. This is what I'd say is that what I think their message is that you should be aspiring to those things. You may not get there, but because you're aspiring to those things, you are effectively going to achieve a better version of yourself on the way to aspiring to having more money, having good health, you know, these type of things. That's what, when I listen to them, right, that's what I hear. Is it attainable, like you're saying, for everybody? Absolutely not, right? That's just not possible. But will some people get there? Absolutely.
Well, 100 people will get there, but it won't be the majority, really. It'll be a minority. But you can't give people that full service, because, as you mentioned, people are lost right now. People get so many messages and they don't know what to do. How can we turn the lights around? How can we get that quick money? And if you're putting in these promises, or you're showcasing this stuff, not everyone's going to have the mindset of, like you've just mentioned there, that you're aspiring to get there. Some people feel like, I have to get there, and if I don't get there, then I'm a failure. But what happened to all those traditional values that we used to have before? Treat people with respect, work hard. Hard work in life is everything, Flex. Whether you can get money quickly or whatever, hard work is the key to a lot of things. And people,
you could also be working hard for nothing, and that's the point.
That's my point. Though we can all work hard, but we all won't be millionaires. Though some of us will be struggling for the rest of our life. Some of us will just be getting by. That's life. If you make it, it's a bonus. But as a man, if with a family, right, I'm thinking about, okay, I've got to work hard to look after my partner and my children. That's the number one bonus, number one priority. If I was to get a bit more and to get to the stage where I can have the mansion, that's a bonus for me. But I'm not going to get from where I am now to that $1 million mansion. Our traditional values should stay the same. It should be work hard, look after your family, treat you with respect, and everything else after that is a bonus.
Interesting. So that's your stance, right?
I
That's
think it
your
should be like that though, because the problem is we in our world right now, and again with social, we all showcase stuff to show people that for you to be happy in your life, Lex, you need to have this, and this. But that's not always true. Some people will have a lot less than others, but they might be they might be satisfied with their life. But when you see high influencers who showcase this stuff, people feel like that's the only way that you should be satisfied, or for you to be seen as a man or to be successful, that's it. But for some people, being successful might be looking after their kids, bring up their kids.
Let me tell you something. So this is the difference, right? You understand societal norms and structure, and you've identified your place in those norms and structures. This message from these guys in the Manosphere appeals to people that don't have a place, and that's why they can sell them this ideology and that lifestyle. Do you see what I mean? Right? The whole
you mentioned the keyword there. You mentioned sell, the keyword sell. So are they selling them a full stream?
Well, it's not a false dream because some will attain it. They're just not telling. It's like playing the lottery, right?
Yeah.
You could win and you might not never win, but you can play. And that's the message. You see what I mean?
You can play and lose all your money though, can't you?
What, you can play and lose all your money, or there could be that one day where you're richer beyond your wildest beliefs.
Yeah, and the chances of that happening are slim. Again, it's like gambling, right? You can gamble. You get to a certain point where, listen, Flex, I've made 50 grand, but that's not enough for me. So what I do is I gamble it and I lose everything. And that comes back to my point. In society and as men, we have to be satisfied with what you've got. Everything else is a bonus. Yes, of course we can achieve it, but it's just in the real life scenario, right?
It's
in reality,
though.
We all won't get there though. You can aspire for. No one's saying you shouldn't aspire. We should all aspire for stuff, but we look at the challenges we're facing right now, and people will showcase this stuff, and you're thinking, well, I want to be like that person, but is that really
subjective? So share with our audience then. What is the baseline? What should men be aspiring for? What's the baseline?
I think men ultimately we all aspire for success, Flex. But success can come in different forms, can't it? For some people, it might be owning a business. For some people, it might be starting a family. For some people,
it might be
subjective. Yeah. No. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But the people spreading this messaging and these communities, what is their message? They're talking about a matrix. But what you're doing, bringing people into your trading platforms and stuff. If people are losing money, are you profiting off those people? Are you profiting off those people? And if you are profiting off those people, you're going to stay rich, my friend. But if people know you, who are following you, are they better off or worse off?
It's a question.
I don't know. Again, you're not wrong. People should aspire to be a lot more. And these people are spreading this message and say, yeah, join our platforms. You've got to be a man. You've got to be rich. Fantastic. We'll join it. Put your money in there. If I'm making less from that, but yet you're profiting from me making less from it, then the messaging you're giving me, and it goes back to my point of Harrison being very contradictory about his messaging there, saying that he's putting homophobic slurs. I'm not homophobic. I hate OnlyFans. It's disgusting, yet I promote on my platform. So which one is it?
I mean, two things can be true. Two things can be true.
Yeah.
Two things can be true, right? He's found something he can monetize, but he doesn't respect it. It's the same way people go to work and don't like work.
Yeah.
And don't like being there. So what's the difference, right?
Yeah, the difference is we work. A lot of us have to do it to survive, don't we?
So we're saying it's a moral thing. We're saying, well, your morals don't quite count.
Well, I think we can say that. I mean, no, you're right. He's right. You can advertise something and be in a business, but not necessarily agree with it because you're making money. But again, that's clear because you're the boss and you're making money. But when you bring people in and say that if you join my platform, you'd be a lot better off. Well, how true is it? That's the whole thing. But listen, there were some interesting points regarding relationships in there as well. I think Justin, like I mentioned earlier, has an open relationship where his wife or his partner is aware of his other women in his life, and it kind of, and again, going back to Byron as well, right? He, I think it was his girlfriend called Angie, the one who featured in the documentary. And Louis quizzed them and said that, well, listen, Angie wants a family in the future, yet Byron's not ready to settle down. And that came across as a bit awkward in the documentary. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on men like that, I guess, saying that you should be able to sleep with as many women as you want. You should have as many women as you want. Because I think for people like us who are in a long-term relationships, I don't think if we went to our partners with some of these perspectives, I don't think it would be received well. So
I think it's more from where you are in the world, right? It even comes down to even the religion you're in. The Muslims, their religion supports that, and it's not a problem. In Christendom, it's not supported, so it's a problem. If you're living here in the UK and other first world like countries, it's a problem that's not allowed. But then you go to other countries, namely in Africa and also in the Middle East and so on, it's absolutely fine. So for me, I don't think it's a problem. I think if everyone is in agreement with that type of setup, then have at it. That's your setup and it works for you.
Do you think that potentially, if you also sort of go down that route, do you think they could lead to long-term issues there?
I don't know, because I've never thought about it. I don't know anyone who's done it, to have any advanced views on it. I'm sure people are successful in doing so and having multiple wives and looking after each wife and the children they have on those various sides and so on. And it's working. Maybe we can see if we can get someone in on the show who's actually living that life, and maybe they can tell us.
Good luck finding someone who will come on air and talk about that.
We'll find a brother somewhere that's his life. That's how he's actively living, and people know that that's how because the difference is that if you're doing it and you're doing it in secret and you're hiding, then what you're doing is wrong. Do you see what I mean? But if you're doing it openly and everybody knows that this is your setup, then you should be free in speaking about it, because that's how you're living. Do you see what I mean? So that's my views on it. Personally, it's not my stilo, but for others, that's their bag.
I agree. I think sometimes as well, I think when you're looking at these people in documentary, and I think again, people will look at them and they aspire. You look at people. Do you know when they made that sign? Was it the Matrix? They did this.
Yeah.
I think that's from Andrew Tate, isn't it? He did that quite a lot of these interviews. And people, young men, look at these individuals and they believe everything they say. To them, it's essentially gospel, really. But I think what you have to remember is, I think as men, what we have to remember is when we do get advice and when we do get people sharing their opinions, right? You have to remember that your life currently, as we stand and we talk about this, right, is very different to their life. It's very different. And as much as you're going to believe everything they say, take everything on board and maybe put it into practice, the consequence, if you're ready to accept that potentially, because again, like I mentioned, if we went to our partners and we said, well, listen, we should have an open relationship, it's not going to go down well. Like, they'll think that you wouldn't. Listen, Flex, you can try if you want and let me know how it goes.
Mate, don't want to live in my car. I'm all right.
So I don't think we've received well, right? So we have to realize when we listen to advice and we get advice or we get pointers or principles on how we should live our lives, before you put it into practice and before you apply it to your own personal life, you have to realize and accept that if you're going to go down this road, the consequences could be fatal, and it's not always easy to recover. So yes, I agree with the concept of things of yes, have a community, uplift people, give them good advice about how we can better ourselves. That's fantastic. But when you hear a lot of strong opinions about relationships and how much women you should have, people will literally think, yeah, I've got to do this way because this is what they've said. But again, when you look at it and you put it into practice, you have to realize that the consequences for you could be a lot more fatal than it could be for that individual who's told you to go and do that. So we have to really sit there and think. It's not just about the Manosphere as well, Flex. Just in general life, right? We sit there and a lot of us, probably the reason why a lot of us are unhappy and unsatisfied is because we're always comparing and we're not satisfied. Nothing's ever enough. But you have to remember that everyone's journey is different in life. And just because someone might have more money than you or bigger, yes, that might be true. And it might be somebody you want to aspire to get to, right? But every decision that you make in life here, if it goes well, brilliant, you're going to reap the benefits of it. But if it goes badly, you and you only reap the consequences. So before we make decisions based on what people say, we have to really sit there and think, okay, is it worth me doing this? What are the benefits? What are the consequences? If the consequences outweigh the benefits, you've got to really second think as to the decision you're going to make or potentially going to make.
Absolutely. And you know what? I feel like there's more that we could have spoken about today. So for sure, guys, like we are going to definitely have multiple parts discussing not just the Manosphere, but men, women, relationships, life, parenthood, whatever else is going on in this life that we all live in. Do you see what I mean? So for sure, we're going to have some guests come on, you know, for sure. We're going to have some people come on to have some real good conversations. Some people have got experience and some people, you know, that just want to share some views and, you know, go back and forth with us with, you know, our opinions and stuff like that. But
That's
look,
it.
man, this has been a good one. This has been a good one. And
It has been Flex.
I love for people to be in the comment section and, you know, just tell us like your opinion. You know, where is your mind with all of this stuff that's going on? You know, is success, you know, subjective to your own demands, or can someone tell you what the barometer is for success? You know, these type of things. So yeah, man, we should definitely, run this back.
For sure. As Flex said, guys, listen, continue to like and subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate it gratefully, and also on Instagram as well. So if you're not following us on there now, the link will be in the description below. The handle will be in the description below. And as Flex said, listen, let us know in the comments, guys. Let us know what you think about our thoughts. Again, this is a discussion. We're not saying that we have all the answers, or, you know, what they're saying in the Manosphere is wrong. It's just it's a discussion we're having, and I think these discussions are great because we can all draw our own points of view. And as you said, I think it would be good to get maybe a female's perspective on this as well, because they featured in the documentary. And one thing that stuck with me before we finish off was how some of them tried to belittle the females in there as well. And that was quite interesting why they'll do that. So it'd be good to get a female's perspective on that. But listen, Flex, it's been great as always. Guys, again, comment below, let us know your thoughts. Follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe on YouTube. And we will catch you in the next one.